Yeah. Okay, did my Ahri fucking... Where are my Ahri items this game? What the fuck? Is Ahri just broken every comp or what? Juke off a shadow. I didn't know what the fuck I was ahead. All I know is my Ahri fucking just ultied and his high died. Why did I give my Teemo items? What the fuck? Are you guys gonna an Ahri actually or no? Fuck it, just put him in Ahri. Remake Ahri.
I stand ready. I will fight as long as I stand.
I'm gonna hit. I'm gonna hit. No fucking fear. This might be the biggest gift of my life, though, actually. Oh. Okay, who do I TG? Who the fuck do I TG? It is lit. These Ahri items are too insane for this comp. Honestly, actually this comp is probably most broken when you have like any form of like mana items on Ahri. Or any, if you have like any items on Ahri actually, this comp is actually insane, I think. Like, I think this comp sucks, but as soon as you get like items on Ahri, this comp actually becomes insane, I think. Can you look at it feels attack speeds after fights? Yeah, sure. Next fight. Spat. Oh my spats. You playing Moonlight Spirit? I don't know if I can do a spat. I guess I can do Dust Spat with that one unit though. How do you stop dropping LP? Hard force a comp and never look back.
I will not falter.
Wait, I better look at my attack speed. Fuck. We're at 4. Okay. This guy is one off Katarina, Akali, and Xin Zhao. This guy is getting the mortdogg Classic. The mortdogg Classic is when you have 8 pairs of everything. Well, what the fuck is this? Also, this guy looks fucking strong. I'm kind of shaking, actually. Oh my god, I didn't even cast. Okay, honestly, why don't I just put fucking BT on Aphelios? Do you guys see that? My Aphelios, it rolled healing, it was literally fucking healing. Legit question, why don't I just put fucking healing on my Aphelios? Or BT? Wait, that's an elegance, man. I'm kind of shaking. What the fuck? Also, I have a spat rate, but nothing to put it on. Like, none of these spats even work. Besides your mage spat. shit. Canophilios, turrets, good CC. No. For sure. Ahri 3, nice try. I am going fast 8 into it. Okay, how do both of these guys have fucking 50 Drew Gauntlets on their set? I don't understand. Like, is that easy? Is that easy to hit fucking what's his name nowadays or what? You guys both have 50 Drew Gauntlets each. I rolled healing. Maybe I will never take damage. I got chopped. I got chopped. Not bad. Wait, I can't put this on anyone. Okay. Chomp, chomp, chomp. Items on Teemo. Items on Teemo. Fuck, it's time. Items on Teemo. Wait. You can't get a spat from this. Can you? Pretty sure. Actually, I'm pretty sure you can. I'm actually pretty sure you can literally get a spat. Or it's just a Nico. Put in work for a Zir. Pog. I thought I moved my Ahri. I feel like I really should have moved my Ahri. It's a first. How much time, bro? Wait, you know this comp's actually kind of broken? I feel like. Alright. Thing is, even though I'm playing like low, I'm actually pretty sure this comp's actually pretty good. Because like, look at the stats of people. This comp's actually, it's actually way too high. Work over your Zir Kek W. Okay, honestly, I'm probably gonna grind this account probably eventually to like higher low. Then it gets the count to like up there. How come my scores suck so much? I don't understand. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm like fucking struggling. Like, you know, I struggle harder in these games than my fucking main. Like, hello? Hello? It clicked. Yeah, it kind of did actually. I'm playing that comp. Oh my god, I just took my other accounts scores. I'm about to fucking have 2.1 average again. If I play like 5 more games or some shit. Get rid of my crap scores, actually. I'm probably gonna end stream. Hey, not bad. How long we stream for today? What's the uptime? So we can uptime real quick. Let me get rid of this music. Everyone gonna host. Wait, are they even live? Oh, check real quick. Check real quick. Giant Slayer TV. Good stream. Do you guys everyone host mortdogg? Because it's mortdogg. Okay, we're gonna start sad music. Also, is there any mortdogg sounds? What's a good mortdogg? thing to end on. Actually, you want up Youngo? Fuck it. You know what? I'm just gonna add my thing of mortdogg and call it. I'm just gonna play this and probably call it a stream, so you guys know who mortdogg is. Let me start the raid real quick. Clear dashboard. Channel. Giant Slayer TV.
Ready to sink your teeth into a lemon pepper, sweet and spicy Korean cute-tastic mango habanero
Masterclass in all things wings.
Yes.
Are you though?
Wingstop's new all-in bundle delivered for a limited time.
The intense conversations, and that's actually one of my jobs, is to eventually go, okay, here's what we're going with. Like I said, in this case, even though I personally was actually on the side of we shouldn't ship this, I backed the play because honestly it was like there were advantages to doing it. So.
Sure. Well, for what it's worth, it to me, because Ahri has the orb thing anyway, this is just sort of like a powered up spirit bomb version of it. So like, as someone from outside of the internal Riot, ecosystem as it works, to me it fits thematically with their character for what it's worth.
That was my bet. So I'm glad it paid off.
And hearing every player be like, "That's the spirit bomb," was like, "All right, we good, we good." It's
yeah.
good.
Dan, what do you think?
Ahri's super popular. It's also a discovered build that came halfway through the patch. It's been really fun.
Does Ahri fit your lore fantasy though, Dan?
I mean, I played a lot of League of Legends from like season 1 to 4, and I played thousands of lost South games. And so like for me, like it was a little bit confusing. A couple times, and then maybe like the second or third time I played Ahri, I kind of recognized that this is actually really cool. It's a nice take, and like in the end, she just shoots a bunch of energy orbs, so it's not a big deal. Even if she doesn't have that ability in Summoner's Rift, I think it's really cool. Oh my gosh, we got rated by Delicious Milk.
By Milk. Hey Milk, what's up? Thanks for joining us. We're just talking about Ahri's lore. As you do. But let's move on. Let's talk about set 4 anticipation. So we're gonna bring up a tweet that I'm pretty sure we show every single episode at this point, which is the TFT set 4 roadmap. Let's take a look at this. I have to open this in my window as well over here too, so I can see it. So we have the Galaxy's World Championship, obviously. We had the set 4 launch. We've got the next thing on this list is the set the mid-set update, right? So I wanted to ask you about that. So in set 3.5, we saw some pretty big changes. We saw champions go away, we saw new champions come in, we saw traits go away, we saw new traits go in. Is that kind of the standard for what you're thinking of a mid-set update of being from now on? Or do you feel like it can be flexible? Are there like other changes, for instance, like introducing a Galaxy's type mechanic that changes the game here and there instead of removing or adding things? So what do you guys kind of see as the standard for mid-set updates going forward? Or is there one?
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily one. I think that rotating in and out champions is going to be one of the things that like we definitely will see, just because it's kind of how you keep like players like engaged sort of like mentally with like, okay, what's new, different? How do I like? There's new pieces in this puzzle, right? So we'll definitely want to do that for sure. Mechanics wise though, we didn't really do anything, and we continued updating Galaxies, but we didn't do anything like new or fresh, like entire like system wide in 3.5. But maybe in 4.5, maybe earlier. It's definitely, the door's open.
Yeah, I think Giovanni's got some cool stuff for 4.5 as far as the champions go. We're going to try something we've never done before, so that'll be interesting. But then, in addition, we're also trying to be a little bit reactive. As you mentioned, we don't have Galaxies this time. So, we'll see how the patches play out, and we've got some insurance plans if we need to, based on how does the set feel in a month? How does it feel in 2 months? How does it feel in 3 months? Because again, this is everything we do at TFT is a learning, and this will definitely be the longest time we've gone without adding like a specific new piece of content. Which we'll see how that works. If Chosen continues to be healthy, maybe that's just like, great, we're good to go. maybe not. And if so, we might have to react. And so that's kind of what we've got our eye on right now.
All right. Dan, any thoughts about the roadmap?
So this, I guess, having a set 4 world championship. People always tweet at you, mortdogg. You are also throwing your own tournament, which we'll talk about later in the show. The 4v4 tournament, which is really fun. But you have no actual influence over the world championship or anything like that, right?
0.01%. Like, I get invited to the meetings occasionally, but like, no. I mean, what I can tell you is it's being worked on. What I can tell you is it's going to be better. But you have to take that at face value. I know people have no reason to take that other than me saying words. But the reality is, like, the team is taking it seriously, and they have some learnings from the first time, because there was definitely some jank the first time. And to their credit, the other thing I'll throw out is the pandemic has made things a lot harder. So, I do also think, I do also think the success of the Galaxy's World Championship also helped back some plays a bit. So.
Got it.
So, go ahead, Dan.
I just wanted to ask, like, what do you consider to be the successes of the Galaxy World Championship? Because I think, like, it's really easy when you listen to Twitch streamers, for example, to just assume that everything about the World Championship went wrong, right? Because they're voicing their grievances about things that they want to improve. What do you think actually was good about, like, competitive etc.?
So you can look at some of the baseline stuff, such as, like, what was the viewership? Did it affect our revenue? Did it affect our, like, gameplay hours? Things like that. But then there's also just the, like, kind of the fantasy of it, if you will. And the reality is our winner was a 16-year-old who was streaming on a potato and could barely stream, and ended up being the best player in the world, walking away with 40 grand, and it's like, that's an awesome story. That's a story you're not going to find in League of Legends, And so, like, that's really cool. We want to build more of that so that any player from anywhere in the world can come in and be the best in the world. And, like, when you see the potential of that, you're like, okay, cool. How do we make that a reality?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's pretty fair.
That is super cool.
We need spectator mode first, then, so that way we don't require pay-to-win access to competitive by having a streaming setup in order to compete.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get to that at some point.
You said you've got hundreds of people working on the game. Right?
In the Beyond section.
Exposed.
Welcome to Bed Bath and Beyond.
There you go. So we've got obviously the other things on the roadmap are the Set 5 launch that'll happen eventually next year, I would imagine. Then we've got the things at the bottom, the add-ons, the new mode. We've seen improved arenas. I feel like we've seen arenas where they react to the wins and things like that, which is cool. I love having lots of Again, Dan and I played a lot of Hearthstone, obviously, before coming here, so it's fun to have little things to interact with in the arena and see move around. That's cool. The other things on the list, we're not even going to talk about spectator mode. That's been talked about to death. I'm just going to, as much as we want it, I'll leave that one alone. I'll give you guys a pass this time. But, this new mode thing, anything to say about that?
Look, what I'll say is we hear the desires for the new mode. I am not sure our first new mode is going to be what a lot of our most engaged players are looking for. So just be aware of that.
Sure. Okay.
But I think we are definitely making strides in many areas. And I realize I'm being, like, stupidly vague here, because obviously I have to be. Sure. But I think the new mode will help expand TFT a lot, and I think that's a good thing. So.
Okay. Tournament API, we'll cover the last one too, because obviously, like, as a caster, the more data we have access to, the more data we can review after matches, and the more data we can kind of throw up on the screen during a match. Just elevates things so much.
Yeah.
So first of all, like, what do you kind of like? What's your plan for that? Are you willing to tease an ETA on that, and what's your kind of vision for that going forward?
I mean, ETA, if I remember right, is supposed to be ready for the Set 4 World Championship. Don't hold me to that.
Ooh, sick. All right.
But
we're holding you to that, definitely.
The general idea here is, like, as you saw, even the Galaxy's World Championship did take place on the tournament realm, which was a big step, to be honest. Like, there was
not a lot of people know that, actually, but yeah, it did. It was on the tournament realm, which I was surprised about going into it. I didn't even know that was going to happen.
Right. I mean, honestly, we were like 50-50 at the time, because one of the things we lost was, like, the match history, which meant we couldn't even, like, pull pull up builds and things like that. So a lot of it will be things so that when you're playing on the tournament realm, you can pull things like the item builds, things like that, so that you can do the display stuff. You can pull out stuff like that. So it should help tournament organizers be able to do that. And from what I gather, it's something that we are able to achieve, and so we're working.
Is there any thought being given right now to some sort of like restart function if there's some sort of catastrophic, crash, whether it's the servers or whatnot, to be able to kind of like start a game from at least a recent state of being?
Let me get back to you on that. I don't actually know.
Okay.
I haven't asked. Maybe it's one of those things that we get for free because it's the same engine as League. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I'd have to ask.
All right, it's kind of an extra thing, but I thought I'd toss it in
Yeah,
because I think that is important as the tournament, life of TFT goes on.
Yeah, certainly. I know, like for example, when Aegon got disconnected from the OCENA qualifiers, like that was a huge disappointment, and so maybe if something like that could have been prevented, yeah, I agree. I should ask about that. So.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about the Chosen mechanic. So this mechanic is obviously the new big mechanic for set 4. We mentioned a little bit earlier where, when you can get a champion that counts for 2 of a given trait, with a couple exceptions like exile and stuff like that. You don't obviously need that. But it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. I've been super happy with it. I feel like it's changed the game in that I don't go into a game anymore thinking about these are the 3 or 4 builds I'm going to kind of try to focus on and angle into those. I just kind of play the game, and whatever the game gives me, I sort of try to build around that. So let's talk first about the pros and cons of Chosen. I think the pros vastly outweigh the cons. There's been a couple dissenters here and there, but I just want to get your thoughts initially on how you think the mechanic is working out. Do you think there's any cons that could be addressed with that? Just your sort of state of the Chosen mechanic, and we'll send it over to you first, Giovanni. It's kind of your babies here, your circumstance.
So I think like pros encourages flexibility, pivoting. It encourages, even for more casual players, like exploration of the set without being too punishing, because you can always see more. It encourages just meta diversity. It's doing a lot of really good things that we have basically hoped it was going to do, involving basically interfacing with content we had created and sort of elevating it. And so all of those are like huge pluses and more. When it comes to like the problems, I guess, with it, one of the things that really stands out, and you can kind of see this right now, is that in order for Chosen to really feel like it's working out, everyone needs to be a good Chosen, right? If you see like a Dusk Vayne or a Sharpshooter Vayne, you can't just go, nah, that's not a good Chosen, I'm not going to pick that up, right? Because then all of a sudden, your early game starts to feel a little, weird, and so I think there are definitely some issues to work through, but I'm hoping most of them are going to be through like balance and like tweaking rates, rather than any sort of like big systemic overhauls or anything like that.
Okay.
There's been a lot of theories about like how many Chosens you're going to be given throughout certain stages. And people are talking about like, I haven't seen a Chosen until stage 3 and whatnot. But it seems like you aren't really talking about these probabilities when you talk about a range of other probabilities in TFT. Is there a reason behind why you don't really explain how Chosen works in terms of the probability of that?
Yeah, so I can dive into that because I'm the one who's being close-lipped about it. The reason for it is we think, well, A, we've still got some work to do on it, so it's going to change. B, when you tell somebody a percentage, it creates this expectation that is unrealistic because of the way random distribution works, that whenever it doesn't go their way, they're going to complain about it. Let's say, for example, and this is a hypothetical number, I'm like, Chosen drops 30% of the time. Again, I'm making that number up, but let's just say I said that. Now, if somebody rerolls 10 times and doesn't see 3 Chosen, they're going to be like, game bad, got mortdogg. So there's not really an advantage to us talking about that. So for now, we'd rather keep it vague. Plus, the other thing I'll say is a well-designed random mechanic anyway should feel random without actually being random. And we have a few things in there to prevent it from being truly random. In fact, I'll call out Nature's BF actually broke it right before on PBE. He figured out how to exploit it, and so thankfully we were able to fix it before we launched. But that was good. And so we're just keeping an eye out for those kind of things. And even now we see situations that can be improved. For example, if you don't see a Chosen till 2-5, that feels really bad. We should probably fix that, And so there are definitely improvements to make in the system.
it's
I hate to break it to you anymore. Even if you do reveal all these things, I'm pretty sure that's not going to stop people from crying out your name in vain. And
I can try.
as always. Yeah, but it wouldn't be fun.
Stopping viewers from complaining? What?
I can try.
Like I said, I think the mechanic is really good, and I honestly kind of like that your information has been a little bit about it, because I think one of the things in video games overall, and this extends to even like card games like Magic the Gathering and all that kind of stuff, is where when something new comes out, it has already been data mined and theory crafted and all that to death, that by the time it releases, there's really not a whole lot of exploration and discovery to be done. And so I think while it's great to have more information so you can feel like you can play the best game you're going to play as a player, there's also, I think, a big benefit in terms of enjoyment of that journey of discovery, of kind of like what's good, how does this mechanic work, and it's been fun reading about people's theories about how to get more chosens to pop up and all that kind of stuff too. And that aspect of gaming in general, I think, is one that's sort of like left behind a little bit. People don't think about it, but they really enjoy it more than they realize. And when it's gone, it's kind of frustrating too, because then it's more people telling you how to play the game instead of you learning and becoming better and feeling like you have agency over your own, experience, basically.
To Giovanni's credit, as we came up with the fortune loot tables, the discussion of whether or not to reveal those came up, and Giovanni correctly advocated for, hey, we should let players actually discover these cool, unique moments, and that was so the
Totally
right call,
agree. Yeah.
because the first time that player dropped 5 Thieves Gloves, the reaction was just A+, and we wouldn't have got that if you could just look it up on a table. So
Yeah. And a good reason to keep tweaking them over time. So.
Mystery. Okay, cool.
Has there been any lessons that you feel like you've learned, either playing a lot, watching it launch, and just seeing like, oh, actually, maybe we thought it was going to go one way, but we're starting to discover that actually it's something else that's creating an unhealthy dynamic through chosen or any kind of mechanic that you want to take?
I think there are a lot of positives and negatives. Mostly positives we've learned. I'd say that the current meta being a lot of very sharp comps who are very good at some things and lose to others lead to a more dynamic and shifting and sort of like reactable sort of state, which is actually quite good for TFT. I also... Yeah,
to touch on that, like, that was a really big one for us. If you compare this to Rise of the Elements had a lot of like kind of flat, boring champions that were just like okay, whereas right now Fates has a lot of like really sharp champions, right? Like Zed blows up the backline, Ahri does big AoE, Ashe is like some of the best sustained damage out there. And like having these sharp, powerful champions, as Giovanni said, is really, really good. Our goal right now is actually to make sure that the ones that aren't sharp and powerful get to play also. The other thing I'll call out as a big surprise is all of us going into the chosen mechanic were actually like, this might be too confusing for a lot of players. Certainly not for our like heavy engaged players. Like Soju's not going to lose his mind over this, but what about a player who only plays 50 games a set? Are they just going to be like mind blown by this? And we were all very, very nervous about that. The reality has actually been quite the opposite. Retention is at some of its like best ever, where players are actually sticking with the game and like looking to explore into it. And so hopefully that's breaking some preconceived notions that like actually we can create some deep systems and deep excitement that will keep players engaged. So
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'll also call out one of the biggest learnings, just as an aside to like this whole sharp champion call out, is that like you can pull a lot more like BS if you make it like fun. So like Urgot was like, oh guy insta kills someone, it's like mean, it's evil, it's deadly. Lee Sin kicking people off the map is very similar, but significantly more hilarious. And I think player reception has been much higher to Lee Sin than was to Urgot, even though like very core mechanically they're in very similar spaces. So that's a big takeaway for me personally, like when it comes to designing weird stuff in the future.
Yeah, I think the entertainment value has gone up in this set for sure, in terms of just like seeing what all the different characters do. You know, you talk about Set again, obviously. You know, Lee Sin is really funny, and then you've even got stuff like Azir, which is really interesting. Maybe not as entertaining, but it's cool that he's got this extra element where you get two little pillars essentially to place as well.
Yeah.
But as far as the chosen mechanic goes and retention, one of the things that struck me and I've been telling people is that this is a great time to get into the game, because the chosen mechanic takes away a lot of the, well, I don't know what the good builds are, so why even bother playing? Because when you have the chosen mechanic in there, you see guides coming out right now on like Reddit where it's like, it's not this is how to play the Riven build. It's like, this is 3 variations of the Riven build that all work. And so now it's more about styles than builds, which is much more, I think, new player and returning player friendly. So I think it accomplishes that very well as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now obviously the thing we get into is okay, this is working out great. How do we top it?
Good luck, yeah.
Sure.
So one last thing I want to touch on before we move on to the esports side of things is that you announced recently that there's no B patch for this, which is kind of unprecedented a little bit in TFT. It seems like we've kind of always had a B patch, but I'm happy about this. I was talking to you guys a little bit before the show started, where I was saying I like seeing the meta get to breathe, people get to discover things a little bit more. Is this something that ideally you'd like to do more often, where you just skip the B patch and kind of let things breathe a little bit more? Or, do you think you're generally going to have to do one, and this time, you're not because it's new? What do you think?
You're going to laugh, but hilariously, so we've been obviously learning from like our mistakes in the past, and I'm going to call out patch 10.14, which for those who don't memorize all the numbers and think about it this way,
I remember that.
The Jarvan patch. The Jarvan patch. Jarvan patch was bad. We changed way too much, way too quickly, and it kind of ruined the game for a patch. So we went into set 4 with a very clear mentality, which was we're actually going to do more patches. We're going to B patch every time, and we're going to patch every time, but we're only going to do little changes. And so that way we can just like nudge everything. It's like, oh, if something's just a little off, we'll nudge it. No problem. That was our strategy going in. Well, fast forward a week into Fate, and honestly, we've kind of been blown away by our result, where it's like, actually, the game's just fun, and the meta's still shifting, and players that were like, listing Ahri as C and D tier on Thursday are now probably putting her in S tier. And, Ashe, which was something that Milk was forcing 20 out of 20 games on Saturday, he's now calling bad on Monday. And, like, the game is so being discovered right now that it's like, let's just let it go,
I love it.
Honestly, the only thing that was even a candidate for B-patch at that point was Sunfire and 3 Cultist early. But it was to the point where it was like, at that point, it's barely worth the change cost and the risk of doing the B patch. So we decided to hold off on that. So
Okay.
Well, I have news for you. He's not 20 out of 20 Ashe. He's more like 15 out of 20 Ashe.
So you've got a lot of spirit in there now.
Yeah, he's killing it. And like you said, the builds are evolving too, right? Like we kind of thought it was like brawlers, and now we're just kind of like seeing different variations of it. People are now trying to put spirit in terms of everything, like spirit with sharpshooter, spirit with shade, spirit with all sorts of things. So it's definitely an interesting evolution. So I think this D patch would have definitely put a stop, or at least changed the direction.
Yeah, and also I think long term for TFT we need to stop this reaction, because again, like Friday, Saturday, the number of DMs I got of like, are you going to nerf Brawler, are you going to nerf Ashe, like, can't believe this game's where it is. Fast forward a few days, turns out they're not that big of a problem, and like being figured out. For the first time, it actually feels like that. Like, I'm not gonna say we were always like this. Like, Lender probably should have been nerfed earlier, but like for once we're in a good state. Let's just enjoy it.
I like it. Exactly. Well, let's move on. Let's talk a bit of esports. So there's not not as many tournaments to talk about right now, because we did just come off of the Galaxy's ending, the new set launching, a lot of people learning the set, but we've got a big one to look forward to, and that is your own tournament. The mortdogg 4v4 Madness returns, but this time it's a little bit different. It's actually teams of 4 versus teams of 4. So I want to get your sort of like breakdown of what you felt, what you experienced in the last mortdogg Madness that led you to want to try this time. What was the evolution from mortdogg Madness #1 to mortdogg Top 4 Madness #2?
Sure. So part of this is I'm just trying to give back to the community some of the stuff I'm getting from the Twitch and the YouTube. B, because I'm always, thinking way too far ahead. I'm always using the tournaments as learning games, right? Game development. For example, the Top 4 Madness was us trying to prove out how it felt to have a tournament where top 4 was rewarded. And in a way, that kind of led to the LP change, where 10 LP for 4th, where it was like, we want 4th to feel like a win.
Slap that girl.
So Giant Slayer did a 4v4 in Europe, and it was received really positively. And so I wanted to get a little bit more insight on like how a 4v4 tournament feels out, without necessarily developing, wasting the development time if it's not going to be something exciting.
Sure.
So this is the attempt to see like, how's this going to feel? How's this going to play out? Are the players involved going to like it? Are the viewers going to like it? Is it hype? And if so, maybe there's an argument to go back to production and be like, hey, we should spend a little bit of time here and like make this work. So that's part of why I do these.
Oh, what was that? Maybe a production what? So 4v4 coming to TFT is a game now?
I mean, look, I'm making this all up. We have nothing on the roadmap here. But for example, let's say this tournament went really well, and I was like, hey, maybe if we just made sure that there's this 4v4 mode for tournaments only, and they have a shared health pool in the matchups, they never fight each other. Like, maybe that's worth a short amount of production time to make happen, maybe not. But these are the kind of ideas that you have to even, like, get something green lit. And so, having some evidence to sort of back that up, cool. So,
what would make that tournament successful? Is it the viewership? Is it the player reception and feedback?
All of the above. All of the above.
Okay. Positivity for like 2 weeks, guys. Please.
Yeah, we can do it.
We're on the streams.
We actually measure all success based on like the tone of Milk's tweets. So
he tried really hard for like
a day, maybe 2. Yeah.
It comes from passion, and we all appreciate
I
that.
agree. I agree.
Yep. So I'll throw this next question over to you, Giovanni. We're talking about TFT esports here. I don't think we've ever gotten a chance to ask you, like, what do you like about the state of TFT esports right now? What would you like to see change as far as tournament formats, points, like anything really? Like, I genuinely don't know your sort of thoughts on TFT esports. So.
Generally, I want to see more experimentation with formats. That's my number one thing. I think that in general, I'm always excited to see new modes come to games, especially if they can also be supported in a competitive way. So that's like my number one. In general, I just enjoy watching it too. Seeing high skill players do the little tiny things they get to the edge is always nice in like every game. That's what makes a competitive game enjoyable to watch. But definitely new formats is I would be my biggest thing. And so if more is out there helping support weird experimentation, more power to more. It's awesome. But if the community can grassroots try to start up some smaller stuff, that's fantastic as well.
Yeah. So go ahead.
3 teams from this list. Pick three teams that you think, or maybe even just who do you think will win out of all these teams.
I'll go quick because I already looked and give Giovanni time to look. I have to give credit to Team 7, Phantom Hex Tech, for the best name. It's got that Primal and Final and Stinksy as well, but what a great name. I think
the good old days, right?
Team 9, Naturally Bad, is like a favorite going in. I think that is a stacked team. So we'll be curious to see how that does. And then there's a part of me, as the old boomer that I am, that kind of wants to see Team 1 do well also. But if I had to go, the ultimate finals, I think would be Team 3, Kiuna singles versus Team 9. I think that would be the NA versus EU craziness.
Oh my god.
I think that'd be hype.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Doing it for Kyun's love life. Yeah. So it's, and we could actually get some genuine like NA versus EU results in here, which would be really, really cool, because obviously there's a lot of trash talk. We've seen a little bit of NA versus EU. Obviously EU kind of has bragging rights at the moment, but maybe this could change all that. Who knows?
Yeah, I want to see other regions do well too. You know, NA versus EU rivalry is always fun, but like it's always great when like a dark horse comes up in challenges, and all of a sudden we have to pay attention to their leaderboards and their servers. You know, very, very candidly, like I don't think NA and EU players think super highly of like the other servers compared to their own, because they don't really like consider their leaderboards nearly as much. They're like, oh, if you're getting challenger in like EU East, you know, like try playing on EU West, or you're playing on NA, or like try playing on.
Which is crazy to me, because like you look at the Galaxy finals, and it's like the JP player did really well, and Brazil did really well. So yeah, I think a lot of those regions often get slept on as well. So
yeah, I was just gonna call it. There's a lot of players on here who I don't have like nearly as many eyes on, because they're not like streaming or participating in tournaments when I'm awake, and so